Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm joined by Galen, the designer of 2 of the 4 Galen's Games Minin series. These are solo and 2-player games that take around 20 minutes, and surprisingly they're in mint tins, that sort of size boxes, so super small. So welcome to Galen. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the games.
Hi Oliver, my name is Galen McCown. I am a board game designer and publisher with Galen's Games from Syracuse, New York. My real job is as a psychotherapist for Catholic Charities locally, mostly doing trauma work. I'm also a longtime musician, father, husband, and gamer, which probably doesn't surprise anyone. So the games I have on Kickstarter now, it's called the Galen's Games Mint Tin series, and this is a series of 4 Mint Tin games. They're all 2-player games. They all have solo modes. They're all designed to be able to learn in 5 minutes, play in 20 minutes, play virtually anywhere. Cards are going to be PVC. So you can play, at a dinner table or a bar or whatever, and you don't have to worry about the cards being damaged. So I'll tell you a little bit about the games. They're available in packs of 2, or you can get all 4. I'll start with this guy right over here. So this is Dice Clash. So this is a head-to-head game. Using dice placement grids. This one's probably, out of all of them, the smallest footprint and the easiest one to teach. So during this game, you each have a pool of 9 dice. You're picking a warrior. They all have asymmetric grids and special abilities. There are 6 in the game, as well as 2 AI opponents. And basically, you're rolling your pool of dice, and you're placing on your grid, and where you place it creates both the attack and defense. So the die value plus any modifiers on the space. So the space might do something like flip your die over. It might add 1 to your defense or 1 to your attack, etc. And so basically you're placing that. The way the game kind of goes back and forth is you always have to respond with a block, which is a defense that is higher than your opponent's attack. So your opponent attacks with a 4. You place a 4 on a space with a +1 defense. Now you defended with 5, and your attack, because there's nothing modifying the die, is 4 back to them. So it's the kind of attack counter attack thing. Whenever the attack is 6 or more, you can always parry with a defensive value of 1, so that keeps things going. It's weak. It's usually a weak counter attack, but it keeps you going into your pool until you can wear out your opponent. Some of the other neat things about the game, the different dice. So there's each pool is 6 black dice, 2 white, and 1 red. The white dice, whenever you place one, you have to re-roll the rest of your pool. That could be a great thing, depending on the timing and when you need to use the numbers on the white dice, or maybe you don't want to. The red die, when you play it, will activate your character's unique ability, which is something, powerful and game breaking when you're able to do it, and each character has that. The other kind of neat thing about the game is when you lose, and you'll see this in a lot of Galen's games. This is kind of a thing of mine. I like catch-up mechanics a lot. When you lose, your character and your card will flip over to the other side. I'll actually grab it out here to show that really quick, and you'll gain a better ability and a better grid for the next time around. So just to give an example, so here's the Spartan. That's their first side, and when they get angry, they go to their other side. Also an excuse for more great art by my artist Wallace Yang. Grids, the same thing. You have a front and you have a back where you gain more abilities. So that's Dice Clash. That's one of the Battle Bundle. The other of the Battle Bundle is this game here. This is called Minin Monster Mashup. This one was designed by Chris Bacchi. The artist is John DeCampos. In this game, you are mad scientists, and you are smashing together fantastical creatures and bringing them to the arena for battle. So the creatures, you've got 24 of these cards. They all have a head and a back. So there's just a million of these little guys, or 24 of them. And so what you're doing is you're taking any head and any back, and you're smashing them together to create your unique creature. And that's going to create their health, their intelligence, this unique if-then power. It's hard to do this backwards. A special attack, and their speed. And so life and energy. Energy is something you spend for doing things like rerolls or to activate different powers. The if-then power, the way that works, which is cool because it's unique depending on how you smash together the monsters, if the if condition is met, then you may activate the when condition anytime that round to try to gain an advantage. So that's the creatures. You also, everybody has their own mad scientists. I love the art John DeCampos did for these. And so there's 4 of those guys that you can use, and they all also have unique powers that you can activate. So they go into the arena. You're rolling 2d6s. You're spending energy and using your powers to mitigate those dice, trying to get higher than your opponent. Once everybody is happy with their rolls, they're not going to re-roll anymore. They can't. We go to boost phase, which is kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, 1, 2, 3, shoot thing. And what you're going to do is both players at the same time are either going to show a number 0 through 5, in which case you're spending that much energy to increase your attack by that much, and it goes, adds to your dice pool. Or you're holding out a fist, you're defending, and that is going to reduce your damage in half, and you're going to gain energy back equal to your character's intelligence, which was that energy one there. The last thing you can do is you can slam the table, panic button. That makes both players re-roll their dice, but it's risky because if the other player defends, you lose automatically. So that is Minin Monster Mashup, and those are the battle pack or battle bundle games. The other 2 are strategy games. This one is Verdant, Arizona. This is by Robin David. Art is actually really cool, old botany book public domain art. Which I love. The icons and the graphic design and everything was put together by Jonathan Carnell, who's a great designer and actually one of the co-designers of Dice Clash along with me, and Ryan Sromek. So in Verdant, Arizona, we're both playing cacti collectors. So you're going to have a little market grid of these cards that are going to be a 3x3 with spaces between, and there's going to be this little red truck that you're going to use to pick your card. And so the game is basically a take and make. It's a tableau building game with a really neat and very cutthroat drafting mechanism. So the idea is on your turn, you're going to take that little car, you're going to move it around the market, and you can move it 2 spaces, and it's like a roadway. And wherever you land, you can take one of the cards next to it. You're going to place that in your personal tableau, and you're going to replace it face down in the market. As far as the personal tableau goes, I've heard it's similar to Keystone North America, though I haven't played it. Basically, you're placing it down, and if you already have a card down, you have to place it next to it in some way. You're making a 4x4 grid. The game ends when both players have a 4x4 grid, and you're attempting to get your rows and columns in ascending or descending order. You got a point for that. For every scoring column or row, if there's a gecko in it, which is one of the features on the cards. I'll see if I can find one here. Yeah, there's a gecko. You get a point for that. For every quadrant of the same color, so 4 cards in a corner, for every one of those are 2 points. And so that is what you're going for your score. What's really unique and neat about the game is that drafting mechanism. So like I said, the cards are placed face down, and wherever I end my turn is where you're going to start your turn. Okay, so that means if I'm paying attention to what you might want, I can place you in a bad position. Additionally, at the start of your turn, if you're unable to get to a face-up card in 2 moves, a couple things happen. You place these little Ren tokens, which also start on cards with nests at the beginning of the game, on every face-up card, and then you're going to flip all the face-down ones, and that's a huge advantage if you can time that to happen on your turn because you have a much wider selection. It's a really, really smart, fantastic game. I am not very good at it, but I love it. So that was Verdant, Arizona. And then the last one is one of my designs, another one of the strategy bundle. This is called Heritage Farms. So if you're art by Jonathan Carnell, again here. If you're familiar with the old chicken, fox, and corn riddle, I don't need to show the pieces for this one. Usually okay. If you're familiar with the old chicken, fox, and corn riddle, the idea is that there was a farmer, had a boat, and it can only carry one good at a time, and he was stuck on one side of the river with a fox, a chicken, and a corn. And if he left the fox alone with the chicken would eat the chicken. If he leaves the chicken alone with the corn will eat the corn. So in this game, it's competitive chicken, fox, and corn farming. We're both chicken, fox, and corn farmers, and we're on opposite sides of the river. And so you're moving your boats along with one good across the river from your farm to the markets attached to their farm. So everybody has One side is your farm attached to the other player's market and vice versa. And so you're moving things around. You're trying to get 2 sets of chicken, fox, and corn across the river. But like the riddle, there's something called nature's law, so that every time you abandon, every time a card has no farmers on it, so nobody in the market or the farm, nature's law takes place for the entire card. Chickens eat all corn on the card, foxes eat all the chicken. So you can also lose by losing 3 goods. So it's a pretty mean, very, very thinky, very strategic kind of game. There are some bonuses that shake things up, and additionally there's an advanced mode that has zombie chickens that you can add that go around and infect other chickens, and now the zombie chickens will eat the foxes, or you can poison the corn, and now the corn kills the chickens, and it really makes that puzzle even thinkier.
An awesome run through there of the 4 different games, and coming in those mint tins. I really like that. Super portable, and it should mean that, you know, you can take them out and about with you with those components that you were talking about there as well. Now, this isn't the first time you've kickstarted something nor done something that is 1-2 players. We just sort of fulfilled the Super Snipers campaign that you ran. Now, what is it about sort of this player count that keeps you coming back and designing?
When I really got started being serious about game design, which was during the pandemic, which I think is a familiar story for a lot of people, I really got into 2-player games kind of by default because I only had one other player to play with, my wife, and we love 2-player games, and so I really kind of became a fan of the genre, and also, like I said, I wanted to make things that I'd be able to play. So it was really about where I started, and also because I kind of did a deep dive into that world. I think there's just something special about head-to-head games, also solo games, right? It's you typically, it's interesting. You get to get them to the table more often in some respects because you usually have at least that many people to play with if you're playing at all. In other respects, it can be kind of limiting when you have a bigger group, to go off and play a 2-player game. But that's, I really enjoy head-to-head games. I love the very clear me versus you with high player interaction kind of stuff. Some of my favorites are Splendor Duel, Summoner Wars, we like a lot, the new Star Wars deck building game. There's just some really, really good head-to-head games, and I like designing for that. I like designing for games that are going to be played over and over and feel competitive, and so couples games or best friend kind of games, right? Like where you just want to pull these out and keep trying to beat that same opponent and keep track of your score there.
Despite coming from that sort of pandemic limitation, your passion for the 2-player games really sort of does shine through there. Now, you also include a solo mode. Is there something different you have to do design-wise to incorporate solo into games?
For me, I don't know that it does change the design process. At least the way I go about it, I typically I work on the what is the best possible 2-player game first and foremost, and usually fairly early on in that process, because a lot of I do a ton of play testing, but I also having a solo mode is really advantageous for play testing because you don't always need another player there. You can test out the systems yourself. So I usually, in terms of my own designs, not necessarily the ones I develop that I sign from other designers, it comes in fairly early. It starts purely as a 2-player game, and I very early on figure out a way to put in a solo mode to test some of the core loops. I love the challenge of designing solo games and figuring out how to make solo modes out of games. It's a lot of fun for me. With this one around, I think all the systems are pretty actual. Dice Clash was one of my designs, along with Jonathan and Ryan, who had actually re-implemented a system they had for a game called Scuttleball, but there was no solo mode for that. So, to simulate or to create an automa for the game, what I did was use the same idea of the battle grid, but instead of what a player would do, right, is, their die pool would be rolled, and they'd be choosing which one to place where, and making that kind of strategic decision. Instead, what I did for the Automa, which I think ended up very good and interesting, is the grid works as a kind of like left to right, top to bottom. They roll each die before placing, and then each spot will modify it in some way, and they place it on the first one that allows them to be able to successfully hit back, basically. Very quick version of how this works. But what's nice about that is it really kind of creates a very interesting strategic game where you're trying to early on get them to cover up the really powerful spots so that you can ultimately put them in a position where they can't respond. So that one was really fun to develop. Minin Monster Mashup, I did a ton of development on that game. That one is not my design, but I did create the solo mode for that, so I'm the designer for that. Also, again, especially with these guys, I like very simple systems, but that are challenging and also fun. So for that one, also very simple little decision tree for the AI opponent. Verdant, Arizona, Robin and I worked together on creating the solo mode for that. He came up with a really, really smart solo mode. Again, it's very simple, where you don't want to go through the process of building 2 4x4 grids, one for the Automa. So instead, they're just collecting cards based on a very simple decision tree, and the number of colors of the most colors collected ends up being the scoring mechanism for them, and it works very exceedingly well, and hits on all the same interesting points about what you're doing on your turn in terms of denying the AI opponent what you want them to get, etc. Lastly, the most fun I had, honestly, so Heritage Farms, that was really challenging. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make a solo mode for that, because the way the amount of strategic depth and the things an Automa would have to do to really intelligently respond to what you're doing was a very hard task. It was very challenging, and what ended up happening, the genius thing that really, I shouldn't say genius, the thing that I came up with that was really helpful was, instead of trying to create a smart Automa, I created a very dumb one. And so in the solo mode in Heritage Farms, your opponent is actually your younger cousin Elmer that you're showing the ropes of chicken, fox, and corn farming. So basically, they are moving around and they are not very careful about what they're doing, and you can lose if they lose too many goods. You can lose if they get too many goods across the river and they don't even have to come up with sets like you do. And so you still have the same win condition, but you also have to be in a kind of a race before the Automa screws up, and using your turns to try to prevent that while moving towards the win condition. I think it's a really unique solo mode, and I had a lot of fun designing it.
That's really interesting. I just assumed that a game that would be traditionally head-to-head, you'd have to be in a very different mind space to sort of get a solo experience in there, but it does sound like you've sort of just do it from the offing, which is really cool. Now, as mentioned, this isn't your first Kickstarter. Is there stuff that you learnt from that first experience and have sort of taken through to this one?
That is a great question. I will say that I have... on my website, www.galensgamedesigns.com, I have kept a blog where 3 months leading up to the Super Snipers Kickstarter, all the way through fulfillment, I kept track of kind of the real numbers, what I was doing, what I learned, so you can get a much deeper answer there. And that process was very much a kind of learn from your mistakes situation. I think there were things I did right. I'm super happy with the game, felt great to fulfill it, but also it did not go as well as I had hoped, and financially death didn't go as well as I'd hoped. So what did I learn? I'll kind of answer that question by saying what I did differently this time around, because within that is more or less the answer to that question. I mean, first of all, the switch to Mint 10 games, and also doing 4 at once, there's a couple different thoughts behind that. Number one, it is just more cost efficient, and it's simpler to they're cheaper to manufacture, they're cheaper to ship, they're cheaper for freight. and you can keep the cost at more of an impulse buy kind of number, which is great. Doing 4 at once when I'm done with this Kickstarter, when everything's fulfilled. Next time I'm at a convention, I have 5 games to sell after 2 Kickstarters instead of 1 or 2 had I done a single game again. So that route, all that, moving towards mint tins, a lot of that is a reflection of wanting things to be kind of simpler, and it has really worked out. This campaign's going very well for me right now, and I'm happy about that. Other things, I think, a lot of things that worked around advertising, email lists, updates, things like that. Kind of sticking with what worked, and then not feeling pulled to take on every opportunity. I think that's a big one too. There's people come out of the woodwork. There's a lot of different places where you can spend your money on advertising, and there is a sense of like not wanting to miss out on things. Or experimenting, really, seeing what's going to work and what's not. And this time around, I really kept everything simpler. And a lot of that was for my own kind of mental health through this whole thing, too. There's a lot of stress. I really wanted to focus on kind of the games, getting a very clear kind of product out there. The idea being, the incentive is not the stretch goals. The incentive is it's the best price. So I think that approach has really paid off. I'm 1 week into the campaign. I've already exceeded my backer total numbers and my money numbers from Super Snipers just 1 week in with this. So things are going much better. And yeah, check out the blog for a much deeper answer to that question.
Well, hopefully that sort of stress and mental load is a lot easier and stays easier this time around. And it sounds like you've already hit your goals, so that's obviously a bit of a weight off your shoulders. So let's go for something that's hopefully stress-free. What was your favourite memory from actually play testing one of the games?
It's not specific, but it happened multiple times, and it is with Mint Tin Monster Mashup. The reason why it's my favorite, I both because I think it genuinely is the best gaming moment I've had out of these, but also because of how much work went into it, which affects how it feels to me. So just quickly, originally with Mint Tin Monster Mashup, with the design, it was very much kind of roll the dice, use your power, spend your energy, and somebody would win or lose. And I really wanted to add a layer to the game where it just wasn't completely obvious, what to do. Like, of course, I'm going to spend all my energy because then I'll have more attack than you, and then I win, right? And so that whole rock, paper, scissors thing was a long time in development, went through a lot of different versions, and the one we landed on has created these moments. So, like I explained before, in that game, you got the dice, you know what the numbers are, you know what you're trying to go for, and then you do the 1, 2, 3. And what's beautiful is about that game is you can be down, you can be in a bad situation, and there might be a way out. And so there's this wonderful head game that happens where I roll low and you roll high, and you think, okay, I'm going to panic button, right? I'm going to hit the panic. I'm going to try to re-roll those dice because that's what I need to do. And the way to automatically defeat a panic button is to do that defend. However, if other than that, though, the defend is like basically conceding the loss. So there's this really interesting thing that happens that you may do that and I may panic button, you may win. But if I even go 0 energy and you defend, I win the round. I get to keep going. So there's these really neat moments where you can, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat there, or, really catch your opponent on a surprise panic button. And there's this fun, just kind of mind reading game that when it pays off is just a blast.
I really do love that name, hitting the panic button. That just sounds really cool. And people, when they're reading the rulebook or whatever, are going to be excited about doing that. Now, where could people find out a little bit more about the campaign?
So the Kickstarter campaign is currently live. Just look up Galen's Games Mint Tin series, and you'll find that. Additionally, I have a website, galensgames.com, where I have a blog and information on all the other games that are out there. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and you'll find links to the Discord channel, pretty much any of those places.
Links, of course, will be in the description box downstairs, and let's end on a fun one. What game has the best component in it?
Off the top of my head, I'm going to have to say just all the little trinkets, or whatever you want to call them, from Dro Patal, translated to Ghost versus Palm Muscle. This is an Oink game. I think it's absolutely a little genius game where you're trying to basically, they're charms, that's what they are. You're trying to use charms to ward off a ghost. You flip a card, you have all these like really cool, fun little chunky trinkets. There's like there's a cube and a ring and a clover that's made out, and they're all different materials and different sizes and shapes, and they're just very satisfying. You have them in one hand, and then you flip a card, and you have to very quickly drop the charms that are needed for the ghost, and only those. And whoever does that and grabs the ghost first gets a point. And then that's the other genius part of the game, and another really cool component that I think that I love is the points are actually these little tiny bells that you have to add to your hand, so it makes it harder. So it's a really cool, not exactly catch up mechanism, but handicap the winner thing. So that's my answer.
Now that's an Oink game I've not heard of, so I'll have to check that out. And, well, this is the end of the interview, so why don't you go and check out now the actual Kickstarter campaign for Galen Games' Mint Tin series, and find out even more about the 4 games included. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Galen for coming on and answering these questions, and until next time, have a mint tin filled good day.